A new day, a new update around the 2024 NFL Draft. What's going on, guys? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports as we are getting a new report that Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy may be a lot higher on the Washington Commanders and New England Patriots draft boards than a lot of us think. But let's just kick it to the quote right away. This was coming in from Michael Holley, who is very tapped in with NBC Sports Boston. And this was the report he dropped early on this morning. He says, I'm hearing more and more chatter that J.J. McCarthy is high, if not first, on the boards of the Commanders and Patriots. He may be QB1 for both of those teams. And I just got 3 words for you guys. Here we go. We got another report. We got another rumor on what those teams are planning on doing with the second and third pick in the NFL draft. And could this lead to Drake Maye possibly falling in this year's draft to the Minnesota Vikings? We'll get into all that and more on today's show. But guys, we have a new sub battle that we are going up against here at Chat Sports. It's actually our Saints Now channel. And personally, if I had to pick any kind of big-time rival in the NFL that's not within the NFC North, it's probably those New Orleans Saints fans. So if you guys want to help me out and stay up to date on the latest around your Minnesota Vikings and maybe help us reach 25,000 subs, I think we can pass them before the season starts. It's going to take a lot of extra work, but if you guys are new here and not subscribed, I would really appreciate it if you guys hit that sub button. Well, let's dive into the latest around Drake Maye and J.J. McCarthy. So following that report from Michael Holley, could Drake Maye be falling in this year's 2024 NFL Draft? Well, let's talk about it because I definitely think there is a chance that the draft shakes out and we're looking at, pick 5, pick 6, pick 7, and maybe the North Carolina quarterback is still on the board. But coming up later on today's show, I do want to tease this a little bit. We do have a contract update from Alec Lewis around Justin Jefferson. Then actually, former Vikings GM Rick Spielman gave his 2 cents on what he would do in the Vikings kind of 2024 NFL draft. So we'll get to that in a second. But this is my take around J.J. McCarthy kind of flying up draft boards overall throughout this process. And I think the more and more that this draft process continues, J.J. McCarthy will continue the rise because of the meetings, workouts, and etc. I think once you get him in person and you see what he's all about, you see kind of where his priorities are in his life and on the football field, I think these NFL GMs are really going to start to fall in love with the Michigan quarterback. And actually, Bucky Brooks dropped a mock draft that had the Vikings drafting Drake Maye at 11. And this is how he had the draft shaken out. He had Caleb Williams going number 1, Jaden Daniels still going number 2 to Washington. But this was the curveball. He has the Patriots sticking at pick number 3 and drafting J.J. McCarthy. Now, this is where the draft gets interesting. You may be saying, well, why wouldn't a team trade up and go land a guy like Drake Maye at pick number 4? Well, you got a blue chipper in Marvin Harrison still on the board, the number 1 wide receiver, him going to the Cardinals, and they have a need at wideout, so I could see this happening. Then obviously Jim Harbaugh going up against Joe Alt a couple times in his college career. I think he could want to stay there. Now kick it to the New York Giants at pick number 6. Well, they have a need at wide receiver, and maybe they want to roll with Daniel Jones for one more season, and they take Malik Neighbors. The Titans, they're not going to draft a quarterback, so they go Olu Fashanu, the Penn State tackle. And then the Falcons, still a big-time need at edge. I could see them, obviously, going Dallas Turner, Rome going to the Chicago Bears. And then the Jets sitting there at pick number 10, and they still got Brock Bowers on the board. Even if a team is calling the trade up, I could see them saying, hey, we're going to stick at 10, and we're going to take the generational tight end from Georgia. So then that leaves the Minnesota Vikings. Round 1, pick 11. Drake Maye falls perfectly in their laps to the Minnesota Vikings. And guys, this would just be an absolute dream. This would be an ideal scenario for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, if we are legitimately sitting there on draft day and they don't trade up into the top 5, first off, I'm going to be hitting the panic button. I'm going to be a little nervous. But if Drake Maye just continues to fall and we could somehow get him at pick 11 and then you go get a corner or an edge at pick 23, I don't know. I just think this is more likely than it was a couple months ago of one of these guys falling to Minnesota. I still think the Vikings are going to need to trade up, but then again, you never know. Now, I do want to get to Jaden Daniels here because before we dive into the Justin Jefferson and Rick Spielman talk just around the corner. So Dov Kleiman, he's an aggregator on Twitter, and he put together a tweet, and it was during an interview between an Instagram Live between Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels. Well, Malik Neighbors said, "You are never going to believe where Jaden Daniels is going," and then he added this in. He also added that he might partner with his old homie. Who is he referring to? A lot of people thought maybe Kayshon Boutte, who is with the New England Patriots. But also, personally, I think this is going to be Antonio Pierce, who coached him at Arizona State. But maybe the old homie is Justin Jefferson. So let's talk about it. We're going to be breaking down Jaden Daniels to the Minnesota Vikings because, I think there's been a lot of reports around McCarthy, around Drake Maye, but it's been almost a little too quiet on the Jaden Daniels to Minnesota front. And listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Jaden Daniels. I got him as my quarterback 4. I'd much rather have the Vikings take J.J. McCarthy or Drake Maye. But again, I think the second best quarterback in this year's class is going to be whoever the hell the Vikings select, and Jaden Daniels would be great. Now let's dive into some of his deep analytics from this season. Shout out to producer Tex for making these couple graphics you guys are about to see. They're absolutely sweet. But in terms of adjusted completion percentage for Daniels, he was 7th in the country. Big time throw rate, 8.4%, which was 6th. Turnover-worthy play rate, very low at 1.6, and that was tied for 6th in the country. Then obviously we know he was pushing the ball downfield with the 4th most deep yards in the entire nation last season at LSU at 1,300 yards. And I know what you may be saying. Well, why wouldn't you want Jaden Daniels? Clearly, he was one of the best quarterbacks in college football last season. It's just personally, I think he is a lot closer to his peak than a lot more people believe. And when I'm evaluating these quarterbacks, I'm not just taking their tape from this past season. I'm projecting on what they could be in the NFL. But a little pros and cons. No doubt the best dual threat in the class. Throws a great deep ball, which I think him pushing the ball downfield, the Jefferson and Addison would be special. And then he can make something out of nothing. He's got great feet outside the pocket, can make dudes miss. And he's also got a ton of experience under his belt, playing 55 games at LSU and Arizona State. But he only has one season of elite production. He really wasn't even projected to be a first-round pick heading into this year. So I think that kind of speaks to maybe he caught lightning in a bottle. He was playing with a bunch of great talent at LSU. So, I think that's definitely a con. He also is 23 years old, playing 6 seasons of college football. Kind of speaks to more of the reason why I think he's closer to his peak in comparison to Maye or McCarthy. And he does pull off his reads very quick. Like if his first read isn't there, he'll just say, screw it, I'm booking it and I'm taking off, which I don't think he could get away with too often at the next level. And overall, when he's throwing in the middle of the field, he doesn't really put too much zip or too much power on the football. So again, that's kind of another con I have for him. But again, I'm a fan of Daniels. I think he would work out in Minnesota. But between these 3 quarterbacks, I probably got Jaden Daniels last on my list. I still think number 1, probably Drake Maye, even though I'm really starting to lean J.J. McCarthy. But, hey, you guys help me figure it out. Pick a quarterback for me. Type DM for Drake Maye, JJ for J.J. McCarthy, or JD for Jaden Daniels. Let me know your thoughts down below. So coming up around the corner, I am going to give you guys an update around Justin Jefferson and where his contract sits with Minnesota. Then also, Slick Rick had to chime in on the Vikings draft plan, so we'll dive into that here in a second. But first, I want to give a big time shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. If you guys download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS when you're making your first deposit, we're going to match it up to $100. Even though the football season is not here, the action on the hardwood is heating up. The Minnesota Timberwolves are starting their playoff run in about a week or so there's no better time to download the Prize Picks app, start making your lineups for the NBA or even other sports, such as the Masters, which is this weekend. And this is what the lineup I cooked up for that tournament. I'm taking the less on Phil Mickelson, round 1 on Thursday, 2.5 birdies or better. Then I'm going to ride the hot hand in Victor Hovland. I'm going to go more than 3.5 birdies or better for him. But they don't just have PGA or the Masters. They got football. They got NBA. They got NHL. They got whatever it may be. Prize Picks has it. Win big money today. Download the app. Use promo code CLNS, and we will match your first deposit up to $100. This is my favorite app I have on my phone. I was watching the national championship game last night. Game got out of hand at the second half, and I was still being able to pay attention and had a lot more juice in the game because of Prize Picks. Even if it's a boring game, maybe the Timberwolves are playing, the Washington Wizards or whatever it may be, adding a Prize Picks lineup just adds a whole lot more juice and a whole lot more fun to the viewing experience. So make sure you guys do download that, Prize Picks, and when you're making your first deposit, use promo code CLNS, and we will match it up to $100. I'll put that link for you guys in the comment section and description of today's show, prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS to get your first deposit matched up to $100. All right, let's talk about the best non-quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion, Justin Jefferson. What is going on with this contract? Is he getting extended? What's the Minnesota Vikings plan there? Well, Alec Lewis, who works for The Athletic and covers the Minnesota Vikings, wrote up this piece. He says, I also think Justin is well aware of business dynamics, roster building, and I think he's aware of what they can potentially do with the new quarterback, and I think that part excites him for sure. And I must say this, credit to the Vikings front office, coaching staff, brass, whoever you want to give it to. They have handled this situation, in my opinion, absolutely perfectly. They have clearly stayed hand in hand with Justin Jefferson, told him what they are planning on doing with that quarterback spot, because we got the report early on this offseason. He was not going to extend unless he fully knew the plan. Well, it seems like the Minnesota Vikings, they have told him every step of this process, and just kind of credit to them, because I think that is the best way to handle it, because he is the best player on your football team. Obviously, this isn't the NBA where, a guy like Anthony Edwards steer the ship more than anybody, but I just think it just makes a whole lot of sense from the business side of things to keep 18 involved. But let's talk about what Rick Spielman had to say on the Vikings draft plans. This was kind of going viral on Twitter, so I kind of want to give my 2 cents on it. But this was a quote in terms of the Vikings trading up in the draft. He says they're going to have to give up picks 11 and 23 and their 2025 first, plus some more draft capital. I think JJ will be a good pro, but Minnesota will overpay to get him. At this point, they don't have a choice. And my response to Rick Spielman would be, I'm cool with overpaying for JJ McCarthy. They got to give up 3 first-round picks and extra draft capital to trade up to Arizona and get the Michigan quarterback. I'm cool with it, because nothing moves a needle more than a quarterback in all of sports. Even the best player in the NBA on a championship team, that doesn't move the needle in comparison to having an elite quarterback. And I think McCarthy could do just that. And I don't think we would be, worried about a future first-round pick, with the Vikings. If the Vikings had to give that up and JJ McCarthy ended up working out. But also, I think the Vikings are ready to win now. I don't think they're that far away from being a true contender in the NFL. They just need to get the quarterback position right. 2 bookend tackles, 2 great wide receivers. You got a great tight end. You got a great running back now in Aaron Jones, and you added some dogs on that defensive side of the field. You also got one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL. If they get that quarterback position right, I think it's going to work out in Minnesota, and I think J.J. McCarthy would be the answer to that problem. But I'll ask you guys, what say you? Would you give up 3 first-round picks for J.J. McCarthy? Give me a Y for yes, or give me an N for no down in the comment section. Curious to see what you guys got to say. But again, I'm in the camp. I'm spamming my Y for yeses in the comment section. If we get any more updates, and I'm sure we will have a video for you guys ASAP. So help us beat our Saints Now channel and subscribers. And if you guys just want to stay up to date on the latest around your Minnesota Vikings, help me out. Hit that sub button. See you guys later. Skol Vikes.